Hi team, it's Mr. Munro here again to talk about AO9 factorising quadratics. Now this is the second video where we're focused on quadratics. And remember, quadratics are where we're dealing with square numbers or to the power of 2's, such as x squared. So what we're going to be looking at today is the opposite skill from what we looked at in AO8. In AO8 we looked at expanding quadratics. In this lesson we're looking at factorising quadratics. So we're looking at putting quadratics back into the brackets as opposed to taking them out. But before we do that, it's important to recap exactly how we expand quadratics, because it tells us something really important about how to put it back together. It's like when you pull apart a machine, it's important to pay attention to how you pull it apart to know how to put it back together. So let's just quickly recap how we expand quadratics before we look at factorising quadratics. In the last lesson, we talked about how you need to multiply each part in one bracket by everything that's in the other bracket. So, for example, for this question here, x plus 2, x plus 4, we would go x times x squared, x times 4, 4x, and then we'd go 2 times x, 2 times 4, 2x plus 8. And then we'd simplify that to give us x squared plus 6x plus 8. Now there is an easier way to going about doing this, and it has to do with thinking about how all those steps come about. This plus 8 comes as a result of 2 times 4. That's as a result of the multiplication. So this value here, which what we call the C value, comes as a result of the multiplication. So the multiplication gives us C. Well, where does this value, this 6, this B value, come from? Well, the B value comes as a result of the addition of these two. 2x and 4x gives us 6x. So the addition of those two gives us the B value. That's really important for us to understand so we know how to put the expanded quadratic back inside the brackets. Let me give you an example. We're going to go through and we're going to have a look at each of these questions here. Now, you'll notice that the numbers are the same, but in each case, the operation is different. Plus, 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 minus, minus, plus, minus, minus. And this is really, really important for us to understand if we want to correctly factorize quadratics. So let's go through and quickly expand these for us so we can see exactly what happens. Now with the first one, x squared plus 8x plus 12. Okay, so positive, positive, positive B value, positive C value. Let's have a look at the next one. So x squared plus 4x, well that's different, minus 12. I've got a positive B value, but a negative C value. Interesting. Okay, let's look at the next one. So x minus 6, x plus 2. So x squared again, minus 4x, minus 12. They look similar, but oh no, they are slightly different. And let's have a look at the last one. X minus 6, x minus 2, x squared minus 8x, and that's going to be positive 12. Now, it's important to note the difference between each of these based simply on the symbols. Even though we didn't change the numbers, the symbols are really important here. So, what you'll notice with this one here is you've got a positive C and a positive B. With this one down here, you'll notice that you've got a positive C but a negative B. And with these two, you'll notice that you've got positive C's but different B's. So why is that? Well, it has to do with these guys. So remember, the C value comes from the multiplication of the two. And if you're multiplying a positive and a positive, you're going to end up with a positive. If you are multiplying a negative by a positive, a negative by a positive, you're going to end up with a negative. And if you multiply a negative by a negative, you're going to end up with a positive. So, just important to recap that. A positive plus a positive equals a positive. A negative times a negative is a positive, but a positive times a negative is a negative. So these two equations, let's call them B and C, have ended up with negative C's because one's positive, one's negative. Equation D has ended up with a positive C because both are negative, and that gave us the positive. And equation A has ended up with a positive because it's a positive times a positive. But, well, what about the B's? What about the B's value? Why are the B's different? Why have I got an 8x here, a plus 4x, a minus 4x, and a minus 8x here? So let's go through and have a look at that. That has to do, this time round, with addition. So here I have a positive plus a positive, and that's going to give me a positive. So positive 6 plus positive 2, positive 8. Here, well, actually, let's focus on D first. Here, I've got a negative plus a positive, so that's going to give me something that's more negative. So negative 6 plus negative 2 is negative 8. In this case here, in B and in C, it's really important to acknowledge which one is larger. In this case here, the positive is larger than the negative. So you're going to end up with a positive answer. Hence the reason for the positive 4. In this case here, the negative is the largest. Negative 6 and positive 2. So I'm going to end up with a negative B value as a result of the addition. So it's really important to acknowledge these lessons. And we can sort of simplify it using these expressions. This is the general formula we use for a quadratic equation, for a quadratic expression. It's ax squared plus bx plus c. Now, if you have a quadratic expansion that is ax squared plus bx plus c, then what you've got is you've got a positive in both brackets. All right, something like x plus 2, x plus 3. If, however, you have ax squared minus bx plus c, minus bx being the important part here, what you've got is you've got 2 negative. That's as a result of that negative times a negative, giving you that positive. And if you have a negative c value, and realize this is the only case where you end up with a negative c value, you have one positive, one negative. Because the only way you get a negative is a positive times a negative. Just one of each. So, still worthwhile thinking here though about this. When you're dealing with one of these, when you're dealing with a negative c value, well, how am I going to know which one's which? Well, if it's positive, if the b value is positive, then the biggest one is positive. Biggest positive if the b is positive. If the biggest is negative, then the b is going to be negative. So that's an important little lesson to remember there. So with that in mind, and I know that's a lot of information we've had to take in, let's go through and let's have a go at actually factorizing one of these quadratics. So let's go down here. Here we go. So what was my process for getting it out of the brackets? Well, I multiplied the numbers and I added the numbers in order to get this. I multiplied the numbers to get the C, I added the numbers to get the B. So what have I got here? So I'm going to look at the C value first because I can use this to identify factors. What are the ways I'm going to get 24 through multiplication? Well, there are a number of ways. I could go 1 times 24, 2 times 12, 3 times 8, 4 times 6. Now let's have a look at our operations. This is positive and this is positive, which means both of these values are going to be positive. Both of these values are going to be positive. Now, how do I get my B value? My B value comes from adding those together. So I know I'm going to end up with both positives. So let's put these in here. So if I'm adding them together, my question now is, which of these 4 pairs adds together to give me 11? Well, it's this pair here, 3 and 8. Now, in this case, the order of those two doesn't matter. X plus 3, x plus 8, or x plus 8, x plus 3. It's going to be the same no matter what. Let's just quickly double check this, because it's our first one. Let's just check it by going through and thinking about what it would look like. So x squared, yes. Plus 11x, yes. And 3 times 8 is 24, so yes. So that's right, we've got that one there correct. Alright, let's go through and let's try the one directly underneath it, eh? Okay, so what have we got here? We've got 24 again, so I can copy paste what I had up here. 1 and 24, 2 and 12, 3 and 8, 4 and 6. But this time around I'm dealing with a negative. So one of these is going to be negative, one of them is going to be positive. So one's positive, one's negative. Now my next question is, which one's going to be positive, which one's going to be negative? Now, this here is really important. My B value is positive, which means my largest one is going to be positive and my smallest one is going to be negative. So this row here is going to be positive. Sorry, that column there is going to be positive, that column there is going to be negative. Okay, so which of these is going to add together to give me my required, let's put the x's in over here, x plus x minus. So this added together is going to give me 23, so that's not correct. That is going to give me 10. Fantastic. Sorted. Okay, so I said my biggest one needs to be positive, so that's 12, and my smallest one needs to be negative. There we go. And as always, we can go through and just double check. X squared plus 10 minus 24. Brilliant. Got it. So just to recap, the process of doing this, of going through and answering these questions, start with your common factors, right? What are the factors of 24? In this case, it's going to be what are the factors of 15 going to be? Then you need to go through and identify, are you dealing with positives or are you dealing with negatives? That's going to tell you a lot about these particular symbols here. Are you dealing with positives in both, negatives in both, or one of each? And then you need to go through and identify which of your pairs is going to give you the correct B value. So these are all going to give you the correct C value, but which is going to give you the correct B value? Once you've found the one that's going to give you the correct B value, you know what your values are going to be. So you can just put them into the box. All right, let's go through and let's try this one over here. Let's give it a shot. So what do we know already? Well, 15, so there's only 2 ways to get 15. It's 1 and 15, 3 and 5. But both are negative. So in order for this to be a negative, one of them has to be negative, one of them has to be positive. This is negative, so my biggest one has to be negative. So this column here is going to be the negative, that's going to be the positive. So what's this going to be? That's going to be minus 14. What's this going to be? That's going to be minus 2. So there we go. X plus 3. 3 is going to be my positive. x minus 5. Sorted. Okay, last one. Now I chucked a curly whirly in here just for a giggle, just for my own personal amusement. But you can solve this one. The first thing hopefully you've noticed is it's missing a bx. It's missing a b value. Now there's a reason for that. It's because it's been cancelled out. Let me give you an example. Let's think about this like an ordinary c value. What are the ways that you get 9? What are the ways that you get 9? Well, 1 and 9, 3 and 3 are the only ways to get 9. 1 and 9, 3 and 3. Now, what do we notice about the c value? The c value is negative. The c value is negative. So that means one of these has to be positive, one of these has to be negative. Now we don't know which one because we don't have a b value. But the fact that we don't have a b value is probably a bit of a giveaway. The reason we don't have a b value is because it's been cancelled out. And it's been cancelled out because of these guys here. X plus 3, x minus 3. If we go through and we expand this, we go through and do the reverse of this, and we'll go through and do a full expansion of this one. Minus 3x plus 3x minus 9. You'll notice that these two guys here are going to cancel each other out. So what you're going to be left with is just x squared minus 9. That's because they're the same value, because one's positive and one's negative. So that's something just to keep an eye out for. If it's missing that bx value, ooh, something fishy's going on here. That's what's going on. You're dealing with the same value, but one's positive, one's negative. They're cancelling each other out. So it's a lot to cover, and I want you to have an opportunity to go through and attempt it yourself. So that's what we're going to do now. I'm going to give you 4 questions that I want you to go through and attempt. Now, remember, if you found that very confusing, well, a couple of things you can do. You could go through and just try it, see what you pick up as you go along. If you get really stuck, persevere, go back through and recap parts of this video. Or you could ask someone else, or you could do some additional research. But I often think the best thing to do is just try. You'll be surprised how much you've picked up just by listening carefully to this video. So here are your 4 questions I want you to attempt. It's a mixture of all the sorts of questions we've looked at. So what I want you to do now is pause this video, give these questions a go, and then once you're done, unpause the video, we'll have a look, we'll see how you went. All right, off you go. Pause this video now to give these questions a shot. All right, how'd you go? Let's have a look. This stuff's not easy to begin with, but once you get your head around it, yeah, you do get the hang of it. Okay, so 28 is what we're going to look at here. So ways to get 28: 1 and 28, 2 and 14, and I think 4 and 7. Okay, now what are we dealing with? We're dealing with a negative, which means one of these is positive, one of these is negative. That's a negative. So the biggest one is negative, the smallest one is positive. So which one's going to give that to me? That one. That one there. Okay, so it is x plus 4, x minus 7. That's what's going to give me that. There's that first one. All right, let's have a look at this guy over here. Right, 16. So 1 and 16, 2 and 8, 4 and 4. Right, that is a negative, which means one of these has to be negative, one of these has to be positive. That is negative, which means the biggest one is negative. So what have we got here? Oh, I know what's happened here. Someone made a boo-boo. Yeah. Yeah, I think he has. Yeah, he has. Well, if you got completely stuck on this question, well, there's only one person to blame for that, and that is me. So, here is what this question should have been. Yep. Sorry about that. Wow. Okay, so if you didn't get that question first time you attempted it, that's not your fault. That's my fault. Um, yeah, sorry about that. So, well, okay, so the answer to this question should be there should be both negatives, which means there should be that. So it should be this. Um, so, yeah, sorry about that. I don't really have a good excuse for that. Teachers make mistakes as well. Sorry, my bad. Okay. Anyway, moving on. Sorry about that. Okay, let's have a look at this one here. So 20, we've got 1 and 20, we've got 2 and 10, we've got 4 and 5. I think that's it. Okay, both positive, so these are both going to be positive, which means it is that one there. X plus 4, x plus 5. Here we go. And last one, I'm sure you figured this one out pretty quickly after last time around. We're going to be dealing with positive 2 and minus 2. It's the reason why it's cancelled out. There's no b value. So x minus 2, x plus 2. So there you go. Hopefully that didn't put you off too much. If you managed to get this question here managed to completely confuse you, don't worry, that is entirely my fault. Entirely my fault. Teachers make mistakes as well. So hopefully you learned something from that, and my mistake didn't completely throw you off. So that was factorising. That was factorising quadratics. It is a tough skill. It takes a bit of practice, but like with anything, the more you do, the better you get at it. So if you were able to follow that, if you were able to pick something up, and if you were reasonably successful with the last few questions, well done, congratulations. If you found that a little hard, if you're still a little bit confused, feel free to try some more questions, check some more tutorials out online, ask some questions of your classmates, or as always, come and ask me some questions. Otherwise, that is the end of this tutorial. So that is AO9 factorising quadratics. I hope it was useful. Well done, team. See you again next time.